Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Floyd Street's Finest, a Louisville basketball podcast, part of the Field of 68 Media Network. This podcast is presented by Great Flood Brewing Company, our pals making delicious brews here in town. I'm Jeff Greer, joined this week by Jack Grossman for our special Thanksgiving edition of the pod. If you have not already done so, please head over to wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if they have a rating system, please give us a rating and a review. It really helps us shoot up the algorithm for people to find us and like us and listen to our podcast. And of course, we just want to spread the holiday spirit of talking about college basketball. And that it's just truly a wonderful thing for you to do that. So leave us a review and a rating. Tell us how much you like Jack, and and also hit up the YouTube channel for the Field of 68. It's been crazy, Jack. They're doing like these. They're doing a nightly recap shows after dark, and they're doing. I mean, they are flying over at HQ, and your doppelganger John Fanta is like just tearing up the charts as the host.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. I don't know how he has time. He's everywhere. But anyway, so it's been really a fun start to the basketball season, to college basketball, I should say, because NBA had been going a little bit longer. And I stayed up a little bit last night, Jack, to watch Colorado State. They were down 20 in the second half with like 16 minutes left, and they had erased the deficit by the 8-minute mark. I mean, they just came storming back. They beat Northeastern. As I have previously mentioned on this, I did the Blue Ribbon Yearbook for the second year in a row. I had the Mountain West this year, in addition to some OVC teams, some ASUN teams. And I've like adopted the Mountain West. I'm pulling for like every team in the league. It's fun.
It is. Do you have a personal favorite in that group?
Mine is probably Colorado State.
Fair enough. Is Larry Eustachy still the coach there?
No. Now it's Nico. It's Nico Medved, who you may recall.
I like that name.
Yeah, he's a favorite of the national media. He's a great dude. And a really good coach, really good coach. But they were going to be ranked in the Blue Ribbon top 25. So I spent a long time talking to him. And then I talked to their two stars, Isaiah Stevens and David Roddy, for my story. And just super nice people, really thoughtful. I enjoyed it a lot. And then like 2 days later, the second of the two 5-star dudes committed to Memphis, and they were like, actually, we're going to move Memphis into the top 25. So I still wrote long on Colorado State, but they were the team that unfortunately was bumped from the top 25. So anyway, I'm rooting for them. I like Boise State. But anyway, we're off on a tangent. Anyway, Jack, as of this recording, we are getting ready for the trip to the Bahamas. At least Louisville is. I assume they're leaving today. They did the press conference yesterday. Maybe they left last night. But we are getting ready to watch Louisville play at midnight, basically, against Mississippi State on Thanksgiving.
Everyone, welcome to my hours. The nightlife. It's the best.
It's brutal. 9:30 tip is the anticipated.
Oh, it won't start till 10.
It won't start till 10. So Louisville playing Mississippi State, and then Maryland and Richmond is the other matchup. It's a pretty good little field of teams that are all kind of in similar state, are in kind of a similar state right now. Maryland has lost some games, or a game that in George Mason that's kind of made your head turn a little bit. Louisville obviously losing to Furman turned some heads. Richmond is a top 70 team that always has a good offense that they run, and they're well coached by Chris Mooney. And then Mississippi State is a team, kind of a hodgepodge of guys who are super athletic and are going to beat some people in the SEC and going to lose some games in the SEC that you're kind of wondering about, but they're going to be an interesting, difficult opponent for Louisville. So it's a big tournament coming up for them after, I would describe it as a rocky start. Jack, do you feel like that's accurate?
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate way to put it. I mean, Louisville's had, 3-4 bye games already, and they lost one of them, obviously, to Furman. They struggled mightily against Detroit Mercy on Saturday. Heck, even the Southern game, they only won by 12. They've played really only one game, that Navy game, where you really feel like, okay, they did what they're supposed to do. They played really well, and they won by 17, and it wasn't a contest. It probably wasn't really even that close. So, I mean, Louisville's, it's been rocky. It's been inconsistent. It's been sluggish, I think are words that I would throw out there, as well as I can find as many different verbs as possible. And it's been unpredictable. You've had, other than really Noah Locke, you've had different guys on different nights playing well, and that can be both a good and a bad thing, which it's nice to have that depth, but you need to, I feel like Louisville's still trying to find, other than Locke, guys that they can go to when the game matters, when you need a bucket most, because you got to have more than just one guy that can do that.
We were all thinking that would be Jae'Lyn Withers and possibly Sam Williamson.
And they've each had moments.
They've had moments, but you need Jae'Lyn Withers if he's going to be your guy who gets you 12 and 8 through the course of the season, and is your interior, not interior, but front court scoring presence among your 4s and 5s. You can't have him have games where he's got 2 or 4 points. But Jack, something that has stuck out to me that I will admit publicly, I wrote about it in the newsletter. jeffgreer.substack.com comes out every Thursday morning, and will be out this week on Thanksgiving.
Can read it while watching the Macy's Thanksgiving
Day
Parade.
Go. I love it. Love it. The coldest I have ever been was at the Macy's Day Parade a few years ago in New York. It was the coldest one on record.
Of course.
Yeah. But the thing that I put it in my newsletter, and I've said it a few times, but I'll say it here as well. Like, I underestimated the impact of Chris Mack being out. And that's not to say that I didn't I think Chris Mack is one of the top 15, 20 coaches in the country. I mean, he's a really good coach. There's a reason why he was on everyone's wish list for a couple seasons in a row. And at the time he was the hire for Louisville to make. And so I don't have any doubt that he is, at his best, he is one of the top coaches in the country. But for some reason, I just kind of thought, with McMahon's implementing the offense, they'd be in good hands there. And Pegues knows the defense really well and has been alongside Mack for a few years, for a long time now. And they would be okay, that they would be 4-0 coming into this tournament and maybe drop both games, but maybe they'd be competitive down in the Bahamas. And I think I underrated how important it is to have your guy, your coach, your leader, the leader of the leaders, shouting from the sidelines, breaking down film. And the biggest thing I think is just knowing timeouts, having a game feel. I mean, Mike Pegues is doing this on the fly. He does not have prior head coaching experience at this level. And Mac, I mean, you can't undervalue and underrate how important it is to have game feel as a head coach and know when timeouts are needed, know who needs to come in and who comes out, know what kind of halftime speech to give. And, we're not around Pegues for the halftime speeches or anything like that. And I'm not putting any of this on him because he's put in a tough position. And I think he's a good young coach. And I like Mike. I'm just saying, I mean, I think it's a big deal when you don't have your head coach. And then on top of it, Jack, the practices I have seen, and, this goes back to when he was at Xavier too. I mean, Mac coaches the defense. Like, I hate the coordinator thing. I know we kind of joked about it. I mean, I don't know what else to call it, but in addition to being the head coach, when they are coaching the pack line and they're coaching defense, Mac is the lead voice on it. And to not have him there, continuing to implement it after they had done it for a couple months leading up to the season, to not have him there correcting things after games, to not have him there reinforcing things that are important in the way that they do things. all of that, it's hard to quantify, but it just feels like there has to be a level of that has impacted them, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, people have talked about the offense a lot because that's, normally what gets, all the glitz and glamour, but they haven't been very good on the defensive end. They've been out rebounded multiple games against, low major teams. And we know how important it is for Chris Mack, how much he values defensive rebounding, forcing tough jumpers and getting the defensive rebound, not giving up second chance points. And that's been problems against Furman and even Navy, a game that they won pretty handily. And you look at, some of the teams that they have coming up here. It would first start with the Bahamas. Michigan State is a very rebound-heavy team. Kentucky's been mauling people on the boards so far, especially with Oscar Sheboy. So I mean,
this guy's been ridiculous.
Yeah, so I mean, you need to get drastically better. What's alarming is that was supposed to be a strength of this team. When you bring back Malik Williams for his 80,000th year of college basketball, when you have Sam Williamson, who was a double-double machine at the end of last year, and the strength of the team was supposed to be, Withers, who was rumored as like, he could be gone in 6 months if he plays really well. Well, and the strength of this team was supposed to be the front court and rebounding and having all that size and all these different guys you keep throwing out there to be aggressive defensively and on the boards. And Louisville just hasn't been that yet. And obviously Mack has to be a big part of that because he makes $4 million for a reason, guys. I mean, that's why he's getting paid as much as he does to make these type of decisions. You're not paying a guy that much if it doesn't matter if he's not gone. And I think we did absolutely undervalue that because of the first 4 teams on the schedule, even though Furman, Navy are pretty good basketball teams. But people don't respect them because they don't have that name brand as someone like a Maryland or Michigan State or a Mississippi State would bring with it. But it absolutely matters, and we've seen just dysfunction. And again, it's almost like the David Padgett year where Mike McGeese is just kind of thrown into a really tough spot, and You're not, David Padgett just wasn't Rick Pitino, and Mike McGeese just isn't Chris Mack. And when you're missing the head coach and you're paying all this money to, it's going to show more than we expect it to. And I get it. The players are the ones making the plays and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the coach has to decide who's in the game, and it's up to the coach to set the tone. And especially when you're working in 12, 13 scholarship players at the same time trying to figure out a rotation with 8 newcomers on the team that weren't on the roster last year, that was going to be a really difficult job for Chris Mack to do. Not to mention someone who's never been a head coach before and is trying to manage substitutions for the first time. And we've seen issues with that. People have talked a lot of the backup big men's like, why is Sidney Curry playing 15 minutes one game, nothing the next? Why does Roosevelt Wheeler not play for 2 games? And then suddenly Bob become a fan favorite in game 3 against Navy. It's the type of things where it's it's tough for him to try to manage all these minutes for all these different guys, especially when you're not used to doing that.
Yeah, it's a very tall challenge.
And that's something that could hurt Louisville down the line as well when you've lost time now for Chris Mack to try to figure out those rotations that you figure he would have been trying to do if he was coaching these first 6 games.
Right. And here's the flip side to that. It could help. I mean, it could help because here's the thing. People have been so frustrated with the way Mack's 3 previous teams finished the season. They took some lumps in February. I have a whole aside about that.
I think
their schedule is always backloaded. It is so difficult in February and March. It's like you've got Virginia, North Carolina. All those games are always Duke. They're always in February. But here's my theory, Jack, is Mack coming back a little bit later, the offense, I think, will be in good shape by February. I think this was going to be more of a learning curve than we realized with the offense. And the defense, typically the team started to get more and more comfortable with the defense as the season progressed, and the offense was what kind of labored a couple of times, at least last year. I mean, last year's offense was brutal, but but I feel like there's still that potential there for them to figure it out.
Absolutely.
And you've got a couple of guys who are not playing well, who you would assume will eventually be playing well. So there is that element of all of this to think about, that maybe this is the year that they actually do finish strong because they're rounding into form at the right time. But the competition is going to get more difficult. Well, before we continue, Jack, I've got to stop here because we want to tell you about our friends over at Great Flood. They are going all out this season during all televised Cardinal women's basketball, men's basketball, and football games. We're running out of time for football now. This season, our drinks are 10% cheaper for the entirety of the game. For a football game, that's like 12 hours of drinking.
That's a full day.
It's a whole day. This pricing is available at both our Highlands Tap Room and Middletown Restaurant. We love hosting you and cannot wait to root along with you as we cheer on our Cardinals. Thank you for your loyal support, and go Cards. And as a side note, we are now expanding our options in our tap room for the first time in 7 years, offering wine by the glass or bottle, and a liquor and cocktail menu is coming soon just for Jack Grossman for Sundays.
You heard about my fun weekend.
I've heard about many of your fun weekends.
I was in Tuscaloosa this past weekend visiting my brothers. You can imagine how that went.
Oh boy.
Sunday notes.
There you go.
Listening.
And by the way, at Great Flood, you can also hit them up for endless mimosas on Sundays. Pretty sweet at both locations. And before we keep going, I also have to tell you a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up for Bet Rivers yet, now is the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. What sets them apart is they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. Basketball season is here, so get in on the action by going to betrivers.com today or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. You obviously have to be 21 years or older to participate. And if you do have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You got anything on that Gonzaga UCLA game? Even though this will be published after that game is played, so we get to see if you were right or not.
I have a long story about sports gambling. I'll have to tell you offline, but
because I will be driving across the river to Indiana to open the Bet Rivers Sports app to bet that game on my way home from work.
Who do you like? What's the line in that?
You know what, I gotta pull it up.
I would imagine it's like Gonzaga by like 5 or something.
I'm assuming I'm going to bet UCLA.
Really?
Because it's Gonzaga plus or -7. So yeah, I'm definitely betting UCLA tonight. And I don't think they have an answer for Juzang. And is Cody Riley going to be back? Because that'll be. And I think they have guys up front with Cody Riley, especially if he's back, and Miles Johnson, the great shot blocker, transfer from Rutgers, to where they can slow Timmy down a little bit. I think Holmgren's going to be great, but I'm not sure if he's ready for a game like that there. I think Jaime Jaquez can really exploit that matchup some. And Tiger Campbell's a good defensive point guard. I think he'll do a good job on Nembhard. And Juzang, I think, will be the difference. Johnny Juzang, he's a baller.
He is a good player. I like other guys more, but he is a good player.
So you like Timmy more, which is fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about UCLA. I mean, they're good. Obviously, they're a Final Four contender. I'm not all bought in on them yet. I don't know what it is.
It's because Scotty D almost knocked him off last night.
I just think defensively they leave something to be desired, which is surprising because
that's fair. They did shut down Villanova in that last 7-8 minutes of that game. Villanova had 60 points with 8 minutes left, and they finished with 69-70 for the game, and that included an overtime period.
Yeah.
And Villanova is a damn good offensive team.
Yeah, they beat them 86-77. I'm looking at at their info right now. But how about Bellarmine? I mean, I thought they were going to get torched, and they kind of fought back. I mean, what you would expect in that game, but they fought back and kept it at 13. And had a nice finish to the game to keep it nice and respectable. Their schedule, I mean, they're 0-5, and it's just so brutal for them because, I mean, Jack, and it's not going to get any easier. I mean, you've got Purdue, who I think right now is playing like the best team in the country.
Yeah.
You got at Murray State, which is always a really good team. And this year, I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the OVC. You got at St. Mary's, you've got at Gonzaga, neutral floor UCLA, you're at West Virginia. I mean, and then you got a couple of decent games later on in the non-conference around Christmas against Loyola Marymount and Bradley. I mean, those aren't like in Miami of Ohio. Those aren't like awesome games. Miami's pretty good. But they're like solid games. So they're scheduled.
Yeah, they've hung in on a couple of those games too. As you said, only losing by 13 to UCLA. They led St. Mary's with about 8 minutes left the other night. So
well, let's this is the perfect segue, Jack, because buried at the bottom of a press release yesterday announcing
they really hit that well.
Moving the volleyball venues around potentially for the NCAA tournament. As anyone who's listening to this podcast probably knows, the University of Louisville's volleyball team is just like storming through the season and is very much the
still undefeated.
Yeah, still undefeated, very much a national title favorite, I would think at this point. So they're trying to plan ahead for the NCAA tournament, and Bellarmine was working with them for venue help for spillover games, et cetera, et cetera. And as part of the agreement for this arrangement that they've put together for volleyball, Louisville and Bellarmine agreed to play men's basketball games next season and the season after that, both at the Yum Center. And as Jack knows, and probably a lot of listeners know, that has been sort of a bugaboo for people here in the city, Louisville fans especially, who kind of treat Bellarmine like their second program and root for them. There's a lot of people who are Louisville fans who went to Bellarmine and vice versa. And like, it was kind of always like, why won't they play each other? And honestly, I fielded a fair amount of phone calls from Bellarmine folks wondering about that. And I don't know the answer to it, but it is good that they're finally going to be playing these games. The problem might be Bellarmine's a pretty good team and might cause some problems at the Yum Center for Louisville.
Yeah, it's not your typical bye game.
No,
sure.
There's a reason people don't want to play them. I mean,
yeah, but yet, if they're Gonzaga, UCLA, and St. Mary's and West Virginia will schedule them. They had Duke on the schedule last year.
Yes.
They have Duke scheduled again, I'm pretty sure, in the future. Why can't Louisville play you when you're 8 miles away or something like that? I mean, I think it makes sense for both programs with how close they are to each other. It's good for the city to see both those two teams play, and like it's not going to be like a Cincinnati Xavier thing where or Louisville Kentucky where it's a rivalry. It'll be a fun game for people to celebrate basketball in the city. Yes, it's a friendly. Yes, to use a soccer term there, it's a friendly. But
I like that. Yes. Well, Jack, let me say this. So I've been fortunate and have very much enjoyed calling play-by-play for called 2 Louisville women's games. I got another one coming up next month, and one of them was against Bellarmine. Louisville beat Bellarmine 82-25, but the crowd, it was like 7,000 plus for Louisville Bellarmine. On a random Tuesday night in November.
Look, I do think, ticket sales and attendance has been such a big talking point
around
here. One of the way to do it,
I mean, have a ton of people.
Yeah.
And I think they would do well, honestly, if we're going to keep talking about attendance and some people care a lot more about it than others. I always I'm bad about paying attention to it. I mean, I'll notice if a football stadium is empty, I will notice. But even at basketball games, this one guy was like, "Oh, you what's the attendance like?" And I said, "Well, I think it was an exhibition." And all I noticed was to the left of me, the section that was looking over the court at mid-court was like relatively full. It seemed like, but I was like half paying attention. So I was like, I don't know. I mean, it looks decent from this one angle that I can see. And he just like peppers me with videos like, is this full? Is this, you think this is a good attendance? All this stuff. I'm like, what are you, I don't care. This is not in my periphery. That's not for me to figure out. That's for marketing people and ticketing people. But regardless, you get games like this, I think that helps a lot. I think if you get games like Evansville, if you get games of other teams in
Western,
this,
which they have a home and home
Western,
with.
Murray State will travel. Got to try to get Northern Kentucky. If you can get some of those more regional games, you will have less of a problem filling the stands. And I know, look, it's an event usually that's attached. So having games like, I think Navy, Southern, and I think Furman were all attached to the Bahamas event. I think usually that's how that works. And you end up getting like 3 bye games out of it. But if you're worried about attendance, schedule some of those one-off games with those teams and start a series with them.
Yeah, and attendance isn't just a Louisville problem. It is a national thing. I mean, Kentucky's had their issues for sure, and it's been an everywhere thing. I think a lot of it is, look, no disrespect to Furman, who's a really good basketball team, obviously beat Louisville or Detroit Mercy, which I personally enjoyed Mike Davis being the head coach there, the former IU coach. Yes, but I mean, like, people would much rather see Bellarmine or NJU or WKU or an actual Power 5 team or Power 6 team with the Big East instead of those schools. It's just not going to do much for you to attend it to. It's not going to excite the fan base to have 6, 7, 8, 9 games where you're playing teams that aren't name brand teams. It just doesn't draw anything, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing where you open Pandora's box. The attendance. I even wrote a piece, like a big trend piece thing back in college about it, just looking at attendance and how much schools make money off of ticket sales, all this stuff. But I'm not going to dive too deeply into that. But basically, schools were making more money despite attendance still going down because they're charging more per ticket. So
the irony is that's why I think a big reason why attendance is going down is tickets cost more.
Yeah, but as long as the schools are still making money, they're making more money, they're not going to change.
And they don't care, and they're getting bigger TV contracts out of it because they're driving people home to watch it on TV, and then the TV deals make up for the money that they're losing elsewhere, and then some. But like I got a TV when we moved into our new house. I got a new TV. I would rather sit on my couch and watch basketball than go to a game. I mean,
I disagree there. There's nothing better than going to a game.
I like going to basketball games.
But if you're giving me the choice of Louisville, Mount St. Mary's, or I know they were on Kentucky's schedule, not Louisville's, or Gonzaga, UCLA on TV.
Gonzaga, UCLA, I want to be in person.
Well, no, but I'm saying if I'm in Louisville, my choices are going to Louisville Navy or watching Gonzaga UCLA on TV.
And you got to put them on 2 screens. Yeah, I mean, it's just a different deal. Well, let's switch back into the team here, and we'll wrap up with this, Jack. I'm curious if you feel like you have a grasp on what the best 5 is for Louisville. I would say right now, and it's sort of against what they were hoping to do. But to me, it's probably involves Williamson, Cross, and Withers as your front court. And they've got to figure out with Malik Williams if it's just a lack of games that he got last year, but he just doesn't look himself. And obviously he's not going to look like sophomore year Malik Williams, but you just wonder how much the injuries have taken a toll on his body, because it does feel like he's laboring a little bit. So that would probably be my front court. And then it's so interesting right now. It's West and Locke. I mean, Locke has been the most impressive player, I think, on the team through the first 4 games, and just doing what we thought he would do, plus creating a little bit more off the dribble. But the other 2 guards in the system, Faulkner and Ellis, have not really found their footing yet. They've each had some moments. Faulkner has had some nice moments, but I'm kind of surprised at how that early season shifting of the sands has happened there. And I'm definitely surprised with the front court with the way it's kind of struggled a little bit.
With the backcourt, I'm not as surprised, because we kind of got the signals from the coaching staff over the summer and in the offseason of Ellis is going to take some more time than what I think a
That's
lot of the
fair.
fans thought. Faulkner, you probably thought would be a little bit more plug and play. And he has shown some flashes. I'd like to see him.
I like the wave that he did.
I do too. That was funny. That was well done. I'd like to see him try to get a little bit more run to see if he can get comfortable and get a rhythm going. Because you see flashes there. But
he averages 3.5 assists a game.
Yeah.
I mean, for the limited minutes that he's getting, that's pretty good.
Yeah, he's moving the ball well. He's, he's a bigger body of a guard. That's more of the prototypical size of a point guard that Chris Mack traditionally had, especially while I had Xavier. But but in terms of just LL, we kind of figured he would kind of come along as the season would go and really start to make a bigger impact in January, February. The front court, I'm with you. Malik Williams, just unfortunately, I don't know if he can get back there. And I don't have inside info on whether or not he can, but he looks like almost like an older NBA player who's just been grizzled through a crap ton of battles, and he doesn't look like the same guy early on in the season, and it's disappointing. And obviously, that's not his fault; that's the injuries.
Yeah,
but it's just he hasn't been able to move or be as effective as he was earlier in his career. And if he can get back to that physically, then he can be a force. He can be a real force for Louisville. But he's just not that right now. Sidney Curry hasn't, done too much. Roosevelt Wheeler did show that big flash in the Navy game to where you think he's a guy that could pop up and play some significant minutes for you later in the year if he continues to develop. But yeah, I'm with you. Cross, Williamson, and Weathers as your 3, 4, and 5, I think is your best lineup right now. I would like to see him. I know there's been a few people that saying Jae'Lyn's taking too many jumpers. He's getting the paint. It's like the whole thing was he's going to play his natural position, be on the perimeter. Yeah. I would rather them almost do the opposite. And not almost. I would rather them, if they're going to play Weathers at the 5, mix in some 5 outlooks. Play all 5 guys on the perimeter, especially if you have Weathers who can hit threes, Cross that can hit threes, and then Locke and West or Faulkner Ellis guys that can all hit threes. Sam can hit, mid-range jumpers. And I feel like that would just open up the floor so much for driving lanes for something that as we've talked about before, isn't a huge strength of this team, trying to beat guys off the dribble. That would open things up to make it a little bit easier for the guards to get into the lane and make plays for themselves or for others. So if you're going to play Weathers at the 5, you might as well take advantage of that and spread it out more and give yourself more space, especially unlike last year when you didn't have the shooters. You do have the shooters to actually do that and be effective this season.
Yeah, and I feel remiss that we haven't mentioned Dre Davis because he had a
huge game on Saturday. Yeah,
and he's a guy who I was bullish on after watching them practice. He's a really tough kid. So there's a role for him. I don't know if it's in their starting 5. I don't know if it's off the bench, whatever it is as the season progresses. But there's a role for him, and there's a toughness about him that Louisville needs. So, yeah, I mean, and there's another guy who I think the door is kind of left open for him is Gabe Wisnitzer.
Yeah.
And look,
there's minutes there if he can grab it.
There's minutes. I mean, I'm telling you, I thought that he would spend this year basically as a red shirt, learning the way he thought he would last year, and after reclassifying. And the injury obviously has set him back, so that sucks for him. And by all accounts, he's a great kid. If he could be a terrible kid, I still wouldn't want him to be hurt. So I don't know why I always couch that when I say that, as if it makes it any better or worse. But no, I mean he's a good dude, but he works really hard. He impressed them through the summer with his work ethic. He does not look like he did when he first arrived. I mean, you saw him in the exhibitions, like he looks. He just looks much more like cut and just looks like a guy who could contribute. And he should, Pagis said he might be coming back in the Bahamas. So the door is open for him to like randomly, after what we kind of thought might be sort of a hide and seek role for this season and, just not end up playing that many games or any games at all and get a red shirt out of the season, to a guy who might end up being a contributor for them. So I'm interested to see if he gets any minutes, because they just need somebody to be a reliable rebounding presence and a rim protector while they try to figure out how to guard drivers, how to sit deep in those that gap help situation that the pack line is built around, and then have somebody at the rim to challenge shots and collect rebounds and not have the ball knocked out of their hands, which has been a little bit of a problem for Louisville this season. So I'm interested to see if he gets in there at all. So it is, but like you said earlier, Jack, I mean, we're talking about a team right now. We've mentioned 11, 12 guys. JJ Trainer's role, I still don't know where that is, if he's going to get back in there at all. I don't know, but we've now mentioned 13 guys with Mike James being out for the season. So, and I think they could have really used him, by the way, for his toughness on the perimeter. But yeah, it's just an interesting point of inflection for Louisville this season to see where they're headed. And Chris Mack will be back by the time we have our next podcast. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the full memoir on Chris Mack's time away.
Yeah, I know. I wish you would just. Yes. I wish you would give us like the Chris Mack Chronicles.
Yes.
Doing, but he probably doesn't want to take attention away from his team.
Yeah.
Or anything like that, because everyone would fever.
Like, do you think he's staying in Louisville? I mean, like, you can watch.
I wonder if he's in Florida, man.
I mean, like, I'll say this. Look, getting suspended sucks. You obviously don't want to do it. You'd rather be with your team. But if you're gone for, 3.5 weeks and you can't do anything and you're not allowed to be a guy for the team, there's TVs in Florida too. Yeah. I mean, you can do everything you want in Florida.
I would bet good money that he has spent at least some of his time in Florida just to.
And he should.
Yeah. Thanksgiving week. Well, Jack, thank you so much for popping on here with us and chatting a little bit. It's always fun to do these kind of collect our thoughts episodes. We'll keep doing them throughout the season, and happy Thanksgiving week to you, my friend, and we'll do it again soon.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too. What's the favorite Thanksgiving food in the Greer house?
Ooh. I'm a big sides guy. I love sides. I will probably say my mom used to make this like sweet potato casserole that's like really, really good. She put like marshmallows in it.
Oh, nice.
It's very good. And then I just love a traditional mashed potatoes.
Yes. My mom's a really good cook, but my favorite thing that she makes is her homemade mashed potatoes that she always makes on Thanksgiving.
Love it.
So yes, I will be eating mounds of mashed potatoes on Thursday.
I'm gonna simulate the main course and try to get quickly to the apple pie. That's what I'm here for.
Give me the turkey, the potatoes, and the stuffing.
Okay. Yeah, right.
All day long. Yeah.
Well, there you go. All right, buddy. Well, thank you. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.